Hi, I'm Kenzie Fell, producer and co-host of McGohan Brabender's podcast channel, Side Effects. Today, we are welcoming Tiffany Kuck, a dynamic communicator who specializes in health and wellness. She's a mentor, coach, and is known for enhancing team and company cultures. McGohan Brabender is lucky to have her as our population health manager and engagement specialist. She helps clients change their approach to health benefits by taking control of rising costs and chronic disease. Whether it's implementing on-site biometric screenings, introducing fitness challenges, or coordinating office-wide flu shots, Tiffany teaches the importance of empowering healthier living. Tiffany studied at the University of Kentucky and had an impressive career with Disney Cruises and Radio Disney before joining the MB family 5 years ago. Without further delay, let's welcome Tiffany Kuck to Side Effects.
I'm Scott McGohan.
I'm Kenzie Fell.
And I'm Anne-Marie Singleton.
Now, I think even for our listeners, too, I think what's important is we might be right, we might be wrong. But one thing is, we're not afraid.
Our goal is to get you to think about things a little differently.
And we're unscripted. We just have free reign for 20 minutes.
Welcome to Side Effects with an A.
Good morning and welcome to Side Effects. I'm Kenzie Fell, and I'm joined by a special co-host today who's filling in for Scott and Anne-Marie. We have Dave Homan from our Director of Strategy and Innovation.
Thanks for having me on the air.
Welcome, Dave. And we are so excited for today's guest, Tiffany Kuck. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here today.
Of course. We're so excited. You are our Population Health Manager here at MB. And I was talking about this earlier. I had never heard of this position until I came here. Is it unique? Is it just special to us?
Sure. So I would say the term population health manager is a little bit unique in the broker world here at McGohan Brabender. Mm-hmm. Many other brokers or organizations like us may have a wellness coordinator that can help with on-site fitness challenges, but I'm here really to build that strategy with our clients and be able to help them for their future cost claims.
I like that term, strategy, because we are the strategy and innovation team. So just in the intro, I talked about empowering healthier living. Mm-hmm. And Dave, was that a phrase that we created here at MB?
Yeah, we actually trademarked empowering healthier living 8-10 years ago, and that is simply our trademarked approach to the clinical and non-clinical interventions and approaches that we use to controlling healthcare costs. So
EHL. Yeah,
we feel like what we're doing is so unique out there in the marketplace, and our approaches that we felt we needed to trademark it.
So there are so many things that we can do to help this mission of EHL. So Tiffany, the main base component we wanted to talk about in this podcast was biometric screenings. Yeah. It feels like it's one of, at least to me, the most simple thing to implement at a company, but tell us a little bit about what is a biometric screening.
Sure. So I would say why it's so simple is because many clients or companies that have never done anything with wellness, to bring a biometric screening on site, it is so beneficial because the employees have it right there. It's accessed right there on site. They're not having to leave to go to it. They can also see how quickly it's done and the process that it happens. So they're not as terrified and scared to do it. So it just is an easy process. So it's a good stepping stone into the wellness and health management world.
Tiffany, I think there are two kinds. There's the finger stick and there's the arm, which I think is called the venipuncture.
Correct.
Which is there one that's better than the other? Why are they different?
Sure. So with the finger stick biometric screening, it is a simple finger prick. And so the biometric screening company would come in and sit on site, and they would be able to draw your blood through just a finger stick. And so that's able to get your lipids, so your glucose, your cholesterol, and your triglyceride numbers. And so when you do a finger stick, it is spun right there on site. So they're able to then give you your results within 10 to 15 minutes after doing that finger stick.
And that's what MB does, right?
That's correct.
Am I allowed to ask
Yeah.
that?
Absolutely.
It's not HIPAA? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then for venipuncture, it's an actual blood draw. So the biometric screening company would come in and they would do a blood draw. Now, you're not getting gallons of blood like you would at, when you're giving blood, but it is more blood than just a finger stick. But they're also able to test for more results to come back. But the downside to a venipuncture blood draw is that it is sent off to the lab, the blood work, and then the results are mailed home to the employees 2 to 3 days, business days later. So you're not able to have that quick coaching moment to be able to see those numbers. You have to then read your report. Now, they're easy to read reports, but you're doing it on your own. It's not in front of a coach that can tell you what all of that means.
What do you find most employers are doing?
Sure. I would say finger stick, probably for that simple coaching moment right there that employees can then understand those numbers and know what it means, especially for maybe your first time having a biometric screening, maybe years after doing it and everybody understands, maybe switching to the venipuncture just because you can get more results than just the metabolic syndrome numbers. It is a full blood draw like you would do at your primary care physician.
Is there a price difference, or does that have any factor?
It doesn't really have a factor. It's pretty much one way or the other, same price.
Cool.
Okay, so when you're looking at that, a biometric screening, I know when we have ours here at McGohan Brabender, it's you've got to schedule the time, you've got to sign up, then you're there for a little bit of time, and then I mean, you get the people like me that just simply don't like needles.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges that employers face when deciding whether or not to do a biometric screening and then actually doing it?
Sure. I would say that finding the right biometric screening company where the nurses can make the employees feel comfortable, help them understand the process, talk to them exactly what they're going to do, and that way the needle is just the object. So look away, have a conversation. So that goes along with finding that right biometric screening vendor.
Okay, will you hold my hand this year?
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a needle fan either. And this past year was my first on-site one that we had, and I felt so comfortable. I'm like, I don't really like blood. And she's like, it's fine. She's like, so, do you have a dog? And I'm like, okay, I like you. Yes, I'm not thinking about the blood. And they were great.
I think that is a very positive side of the finger stick as well. It's just a quick prick. It does not take very long at all. With the blood draw, you do see a little bit more of a needle. So.
Agreed. So are there any other kinds of challenges that you hear about or that you have to kind of help guide companies through?
I would say one thing is understanding the billing and how that works. So sometimes biometric screening vendors are able to bill directly to your insurance carrier. So understanding if it can be billed through the insurance carrier, everything that you need to have. So an eligibility file with all of the member IDs and group numbers should be sent to the biometric screening vendor. And that takes some time. So understanding the process, the time length is where some challenges could fall into place.
So rolling that up to the employer level, we talked about the employee getting the individual data. How does a biometric screening help the employer?
Sure. So at the end of the biometric screening, on-site biometric screening, the employer is able to get a group aggregate results report. So then that biometric screening vendor can sit down and describe where different levels are for those different results and risk factors. So let's say blood pressure is off the charts in an organization. It's very high. So then that biometric screening vendor can sit down with that client organization and talk about different ways to bring in programming or bring in different activities to address those different risk factors.
Okay, and how is the employee's privacy protected through all this?
Sure. So no individual data can ever be shared. And so but at the very beginning of the biometric screening, each employee would sign a HIPAA release form stating that they understand that the individual data is not being shared. It's a voluntary program. The only thing that the employer would see would be that group aggregate results. So only results go to the actual biometric screening vendor company.
Can you kind of break down a little bit what the biometric screening shows? You mentioned earlier triglycerides, cholesterol, but can you give us a little rundown of what everything they find out?
Sure. So with the finger stick, that is the metabolic panel. So they would be able to do that blood test, the finger stick blood test, to be able to find your cholesterol, HDL and LDL, and then your triglyceride numbers and your glucose numbers. So those make up, it's called your lipid panel. So then they also would do your blood pressure, your height, your weight, your waist circumference, and your BMI. So we talk a lot about metabolic syndrome, or MET-S for short. And so that's where you just test the glucose, triglycerides, HDL cholesterol, waist circumference, and blood pressure.
Okay.
So you don't need the full panel that they do test, because we don't look at LDL and total cholesterol, and we don't look at BMI for metabolic syndrome.
I found it very interesting when I got all my results back, because I guess I've never really looked at, the high cholesterol, low cholesterol. Like, it was so eye-opening to me, because I was like, wow, maybe I should cut out some of those extra cookies, or it was just like, it was a very it felt good. Then I talked to the nurse about it, and she just told me some things to think about in the future. And being only 26, I feel like they were like, okay, like, you're on a good path.
Sure.
So I really enjoyed the biometric screening.
And I would say that is the very plus side of doing the finger stick. You can sit there and get those quick little tips and hints about how to change those numbers, and it sticks with you. You remember that. If you were to do the blood draw, the results get sent home in the mail, and you're looking at it, and it is not the same process of hearing somebody tell you. You have to read that. Are you really understanding it? Do you really want to spend time reading it? So that's where a downside of the blood draw is.
What is the most important part of the biometric screening that employers often overlook?
I would say understanding the group aggregate results and putting into practice those results. So if you're just going to do a biometric screening to help your employees understand their numbers, that's good. That's a good first step. But then I would encourage companies to really understand those results when the biometric screening vendor comes to talk to them, and put a plan into place. How do we want to address, just choose one risk factor, maybe that was out of line, and address that this next year. Make it a company goal. Make it a group initiative. Leadership is all on board. So I would say that would probably be where a miss that I see happen sometimes.
And how do employers, I guess, get their employees to do it? Because I know a lot of people, if they don't have to go through the preventive side of things, they wait until something breaks down. And so how do you get that stubborn 50-year-old man who doesn't like biometric screenings to go in and get screened?
Sure. I would say the big word is incentivize. And I wish with everything that we could just tell our employees that we were having an on-site biometric screening for them, and everybody would just go do it because it's good for their health. But unfortunately, that doesn't work out the best. So by incentivizing your employees to do it is a really important piece of it. And that incentive can be all over the spectrum and can look a little bit different for everybody. Some organizations, their employees will do it for a $10 gas card, and that works for them. And then some organizations really need to see that hit their pocket before they make that decision of, I'm going to do that. So there has to be a bigger incentive to do that with a premium differential, HSA dollars, whatever that may look like.
Statistically, what is the number to have a good percentage of people screened?
Sure. And statistically, if you're adding more elements than the biometric screening, it's about $600 annually. When you're just starting with a biometric screening, I would say that could be much lower, because you want to work your way up to that $600 amount. So I would say to get somebody to move and just do a simple on-site screening, probably $100 would be able to get them to do that. Whether that looks like a $100 gift card being put into a raffle, $100 into their HSA.
So kind of switching gears, we have another option. Besides on-site biometrics, you can also ask your employees to go to a PCP, correct?
Yeah.
So do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so PCP stands for primary care physician, and the important piece of that part is that they are building a relationship with a primary care physician. So they are hearing directly from their PCP what those results mean, what it looks like, the things that they need to change. Pretty much the exact same thing that you would hear from the on-site quick snap coach of, hey, you need to eat more fish and you need to have more oils for this to be able to be lowered. That's what your primary care physician would be doing. But you're also building that relationship. So if something was to go wrong, you can then ask your doctor about different medications, different lifestyle changes, what they need to do, and then that doctor has that.
Under that arrangement, is there still an opportunity for the employer to get that aggregate data in some way?
Yeah, good question. So there is. There are biometric screening vendors, usually, most often, have an option of collecting PCP forms. So the employee would go to their primary care physician. They would get their blood work, either a blood draw or a finger stick. The doctor would fill out the form with all of those results, and then the form would be sent into that third-party vendor. As a reminder, it can never be sent into the company's HR or leadership team or anybody within the organization, because that is a HIPAA violation. It's really important that if you are doing a PCP form and gathering those results, it has to be utilized by a third-party vendor.
How do you normally, what are your common outlets for collecting that data with your clients that you work with at McGohan Brabender?
Yeah, well, first, I talk with them about what is their goal. Are they just looking to find out participation numbers, or are they looking to find out the actual results and build a plan based on those aggregate results for risk conditions? So if a company is just looking for participation, they just want their employees to build that relationship with the primary care physician, and they don't really care about the results. Then by utilizing a HIPAA compliant form where it can be collected in-house, no numbers are written on it, and just a signed off signature from a provider, then that is one way that they could go. And then another way, by collecting the forms where it does have HIPAA information, we sit down and we talk about how many different locations they have. Are their employees going to understand maybe getting on to technology to print out that form? Does it have to be a paper packet mailed home to them? So we have to talk through many different questions to figure out the right route to be able to suggest the right vendors for them.
Wow. What do you see most? Do you see them opting for the PCP option or the on-site option? I guess it depends on participation and what they want out of it.
Yeah, and probably how far they are in their wellness program. So the ones, the clients and employers that are just starting out, they're most likely going to do an on-site screening. They want to see what it looks like.
Get their feet wet.
Yeah, definitely. But then as they move in and have been doing it for year over year over year, and they're ready to move to the next step, going to the primary care physician probably.
I'm sure you've got good stories and bad stories from experiences out with clients. Can you share a good story? Like how have biometrics maybe helped an employee or helped an employer?
Sure. So I would say that some of the good stories come from bad things that were about to happen but didn't get there because of that biometric screening. So one client that I'm thinking of right now, so the client was very hesitant. Do we really want to be invasive and bring in the biometric screening on site? Our employees may not like it. So I had to talk to them quite frequently about the pros of it and why it could help in helping their employees maybe find out risks that they didn't know. So finally, after probably trying to convince them for a year, they said, okay, let's do it. So we had an on-site biometric screening, and after that screening, they did a finger stick. And so 3 of their employees were told that they needed to leave immediately and go to the ER. Or if they had a primary care physician, call them right now. All 3 did not have a primary care physician, so 2 of them went to the ER, and they came back and they thanked their company and their managers for having that screening, because they found out that they were diabetic and didn't know it. So now they have a relationship with a primary care physician. They're managing it, and their lifestyle is so much better, and they feel healthier. So great stories can come out of it.
I remember this last spring we did an EHL project, and we brought in some clients and interviewed them about success stories. And one I remember standing out was a company that was majority male, and she was like, it was so hard, but Tiffany pushed us, and they all thanked us at the end, and they didn't have doctors before, and their spouses didn't even know, and they got the whole family involved, and she was like, it was such a success, like they're excited for next year. So those are just feel good, you're making a difference.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
feels good.
Yeah.
And I would just say that even if you think that your employees are not going to like it, do it. It could save somebody's life, and you would just be so thankful and happy that you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just sharing a personal story, just with the way things are, you're running really fast and you don't have time to stop. And oftentimes those incentives or premium differentials or whatever employers are calling them are the extra incentive to push you and kind of hold you accountable that you get things done.
Yep.
And for some people it's the biometric screenings. For others it's preventive screenings. And in my situation, I probably would not have had all of my preventive screenings done that needed to be done if McGohan Brabender, my employer, didn't require it. And so going in, we were able to find some things in its early stages that most likely would have turned into something that could have been very impactful to my life and future. So while we hate it, and some people feel it's big brother, others feel it's invasive, sometimes you need that nudge to get it done. And I think biometric screenings, I've always heard you talking to clients and saying, if you're going to start anywhere, start with your biometric screenings.
Biometric screenings or sending them to the primary care physician. Those two things can change somebody's life in the most positive way.
Agreed. So to wrap up our conversation today, let's say when you work with a client who wants to implement healthy changes, they're scared, like you said, most of them are. Where do you start? What's that first conversation look like? Any advice?
Yeah, so the very first thing I would ask is, what kind of wellness or health management have you had in the past? Is this going to be completely brand new to your employees, or are you starting from a little bit upper scale? Have you done challenges before? Have you even had education and talked about what these things mean? And if that answer is no, that is completely fine, but let's start with educating. So start sending out emails, or start sending out flyers, or start having your leadership have conversations with employees about what's coming in the future. Why are you as an organization focusing on wellness? And have that response be because you care about your employees. So the education piece for an employer that is starting brand new is so important.
Exactly. Well, wonderful. I think that concludes our episode today. And if anyone has any questions or comments or wants to get a hold of Tiffany, you can find her on LinkedIn. Or if you have any topic suggestions, or if you just have any feedback for us, feel free to reach out at Kenzie at Healthier Birthdays. And we will see you guys all next time. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Yep.